What's going on? Who's excited? Huh? Who's feeling good? Are your bellies full? Are your minds empty enough? Yeah? Hey, we are going to have so much fun. My name is Bryce Kenny. I have become obsessed with understanding what gets people stuck in life and then helping them find their next gear. All right? So that's exactly what we're going to touch on today. But by show of hands, has anybody been to a Monster Jam event? Yeah? Oh, that's what I knew this was going to be my crowd when I heard we were coming up to Lima, right? Does anyone want to go to a Monster Jam event? Huh? I got some tickets. Oh, I actually don't. Hey, by any chance, has anyone been to Indianapolis or Cleveland? I've competed there. Any chance you've seen me compete in person by any chance? No? Okay, maybe next year, right? It is so much fun. But here's the deal. I have become really good at getting unstuck because I've become stuck so many times, not just on the track, but off. And even though this isn't church, can I get an amen to that? Right? Anybody else human enough in this audience that you've become stuck from time to time? And so I have developed essentially what I call the gear framework. I'm going to share that with you. Is that fair? All right? Before we do that, any self-respecting Monster Jam driver cannot hit a stage without teaching you first how to drive a Monster Jam truck. Can we do that together? Yes? Can I hear it? All right, good. So in Monster Jam, I think probably one of the most exciting moments at an event is something called a save. And it's where the truck is going out of control and the driver is able to make some move. All the fans think the run is over. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, the driver's able to get traction where no one thought was possible, and it brings it back around on all four tires. And the crowd always erupts. 55,000 people go crazy. Can I show you probably, arguably, my best save of my career? We're going to start off with some highlights today. Is that fair? Right? All right, does anyone want to see that? This was in Houston a few short years ago at NRG Stadium. Yeah, not bad, right? You can do that. Okay, but we got to break this down for just a second because sometimes in Monster Jam, I like to say you're lucky and sometimes you're good. The best Monster Jam moments, honestly, are when you're both. So here's what happened. I knew coming off of this jump that it was going to be a little bit crooked on the landing. And if you notice the back right tire, there's a big puff of dirt that comes flying off of that tire. It's because I knew it was going to be a rough landing, maybe the potential to roll me over. And so I throttled out of the truck because I wanted to launch the truck off of that pod because momentum is your friend. All right? Momentum is your friend. So that throttle pedal was my friend right there because I wanted to try to gain speed. Unfortunately, it didn't work, right? And at this point, I knew I was going for a ride. And so at this moment, I'm just telling myself, don't get disoriented. That's my whole goal. And I knew if I could just try to find where I'm at when I knew I was going into a tumble and turn into that. Look at the front right tires right there. I knew by some miracle that that's where the dirt was. I turn the front tires, I throttle out the truck, and all of a sudden I want to get as much momentum as I could in that moment because momentum is your friend. That's right. Thankfully, it worked. I had no idea that pod was there. Right? So you talk about being lucky. All of a sudden, the truck hits off of that pod. I see the stadium lights come back into my field of view, and I know I've got a chance to land this thing. But I had so much momentum, the only way to calm it down is actually get off the throttle and hit the brakes. Those tires are massive, and that's the only chance I would have to get that thing to keep rotating and land. Let's watch it one more time in full speed. Not bad, right? Could you do that? If I tossed you the keys to my truck, could you? You could probably figure it out. Oh man, I love it. Now, I get to come up here on stage and I get to kind of share with you some of my highlights. But like I said before, I have been very stuck in life. I've been stuck in my career with Monster Jam. Right? 8 years ago, it got so bad. I was in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Nothing was going right. Not on the track, not off the track, definitely not on social media. I definitely wasn't speaking anywhere. I really had no good highlights anywhere in my life. And it built up to so much anxiety and pressure that I ended up in the ER. All of a sudden, the medics, they saw me at the stadium. They saw something in my eyes. I don't know if I was like wobbling or something, but they saw something in my eyes, and they hooked up the heart monitor to my body. And I felt like I was looking through like a straw. And I'm glad they saw me because my heart rate was 180 over 120. And those are heart attack numbers. I wasn't experiencing a heart attack, thankfully. But in that moment, I knew something had to change. I couldn't keep going down this pathway and survive life very much longer. I had to take some of that off of my shoulders. And that was the moment when I decided something had to change. When I look back, because I didn't have this gear framework that someone said, oh, here, just follow this framework and you'll be okay. When I look back, these 4 elements that I'm going to share with you today are the elements that then changed everything to where since that point, I've set a Guinness World Record, right? I travel the world getting to compete in Monster Jam, winning championships and trophies and all the accolades, seeing my name up in lights in stadiums full of 60,000 people, right? I get to speak all across North America, and I even published a book last year. And when I look back, these 4 key elements are what changed everything and finally got me unstuck. All right? Are you ready for them? Yes. Okay, GEAR. The first is to grow. Oh, wow. Real profound, right? All right, hang with me for just a second. I know you're like, this is what we're here for, Bryce. We're learning how to grow. But I learned how to apply personal growth to get me unstuck in life. And I actually learned it when I learned how to do backflips in the truck. Anybody ever seen a Monster Jam backflip in person? Anyone of my Monster Jam fans? Yeah, isn't it so much fun? Yeah, it boggles the mind. Now, this is just a few short years ago, and that right there is routine for me. That's just another day at the office. But it's cool to see that from the outside of the truck. But I know I heard somebody over here real quiet. They said, but what's it look like from inside the truck? Right? Yeah, I think that was you. I don't know. Let me show you. This is what it looks like from the driver's side. You've got a 12,000-pound machine, and you're trying to get the thing to rotate upside down, and you better do it well, because if you crash on one of those, everybody boos you, right? But if you land it, everybody has so much fun. But I had to learn how to do this. And so let me teach you how to do it. When you turn this corner right there, you've got to look at that backflip obstacle and pick out a spot as small as a quarter. That's going to be your focal point. You're not going to deviate from that focal point all the way in as you approach. And as soon as the front tires hit that backflip obstacle, you're going to give it all the throttle it's got. So when it rotates upside down, you're ready. Now you're looking for the dirt to come back into your field of view. When that happens, you lift your foot off the gas and you hit the brake pedal. Those tires weigh 600 pounds each. Multiply that by 4. When you stop that mass from rotating, it slows that rotation down, and hopefully you land it on all 4 tires. If you're, I say if you're fortunate enough. I've crashed plenty myself. Right? All right, so now you're ready. Let's see if you can do it in real speed. You've got it, right? Easy. Easy? Anybody? You've got it. So here's one of the things that I learned in this process. Do you think I could have learned how to do that? I mean, I'm teaching you, but I'm really just sharing with you. Could I have truly gone out and done that and completed it because I learned how to do it just on a podcast? Probably not. Could I have done it off of an Alex Hormozy book, right? Or a Dale Carnegie book? Probably not. I had to I looked around the driver profile, because when Monster Jam said, hey, you're going to start doing backflips for us, I looked around the driver profile and all the guys in the locker room, and I looked for the guy that was the best at them, right? I didn't want the one that crashes all the time. I grabbed Scott Buteau, and I pulled him by the shirt, and we went out onto the track. And I stood in front of that backflip obstacle, and I said, Scott, you land these 99% of the time. How do I do it? And guess what he told me? He said, Bryce, look, you can do this. I've seen you drive. You're going to be fine. When you turn that corner, you want to find a focal point. Watch it all the way in. When the front tires hit that obstacle, you want to give it all the throttle it's got, fully commit to it. And when you see the dirt come back into your field of view, get off the throttle and stab that brake pedal, and you just hope that you land it. Right? And I needed that moment. Here's what's gone on since the pandemic, because that is what a real mentorship situation looks like. Since the pandemic, it's the thing I've seen that we've given up on the most, are finding really great mentors. We've got to recommit to this because, yes, personal growth, we need all the podcasts we can get. We need the great books. But I need somebody that could see the future with me in it. And that is the simplest definition you will ever get for a mentor. Is he somebody that mentored me on my family or how to be a great father? No. And he's a great dad, don't worry. But I needed somebody I could grab by the shirt and look out there and say, okay, do I hit it when I hit this part of the ramp? Okay, you're saying right when the front tires hit the metal part of that obstacle, that's where you fully commit. I said, yes, that's it. That's the power of stuff like this. That's a Jessica Phillips in your life if you choose it, a Now Marketing group. That's what you have access to, are people that you can grab by the shirt, metaphorically speaking, and get that strategy and get that help so that we can all grow. Now, the point of this story, honestly, it's to highlight one thing. It's not to highlight myself. It's to highlight Scott Buteau. Scott had to have something to give me. So when I started getting unstuck, one of the things, the mental shift that I started to make is, here I'm getting fans and opportunities to go and give and interact with an audience and people all over the world. I better have something that I possess to give to them, right? And I learned a very important lesson, that you cannot fuel others from an empty jug. We are all guilty of it, okay? We're guilty of, we have audience people, we have followers, right? They're coming to your page. You're like a pit stop for them. Can you imagine someone coming to you at like a pit stop and you're like, oh, I'm sorry, I'm all out of fuel. But I've got a 20% discount on my training course on how to use AI. That's good information. That's good stuff. But they're coming to you for something. Are you going to have enough fuel in the jug to give to them? And so I radically refreshed my commitment and recommitted to being so passionate about doing everything I can to fill myself up. So when people come to me for a pit stop, like I did for Scott Buteau that day, right? I've got something to give them, right? So what does G stand for? Grow, that's right. Okay, we're moving on. E. E is experiment. Experiment. Okay, I've shown you highlights. Can I show you a low light? Yes? Who's tired of me bragging about myself? Yeah? All right, let me show you how my actual first backflip went. All right, what I've shown you so far was not the first. This was in Minneapolis. I was so pumped. I got all the information from Scott, and this is how it went. That's so pitiful. That wasn't cool at all. It was my first stadium event with my sponsor, Great Clips. The president of that group was there, of Great Clips. That's $1 billion brand. And they told him, they said, hey, Bryce is going to attempt a backflip tonight. And it's his first one. After this happened, he looks over at our big sponsorship people at Feld Entertainment that owns Monster Jam. He goes, well, you can tell it was his first. Great. This relationship's going really wonderful, isn't it? But here's what happened. I had all the best information from the inputs that I got from that veteran driver. But I did not know just how abrasive that backflip obstacle really was. You think to yourself, yeah, you're hitting a metal wall. I don't know, that didn't go through my mind. I thought the shocks and the big giant tires, I didn't expect it to be as rough as it was. And so going back and looking at footage, I had turned that corner and looked at that focal point, and I was approaching that obstacle just like I knew how to do, but I never dropped my foot away from the brake. I don't drive with my foot near the brake because I'm a professional crash test dummy for a living. My feet are flying all over the place, and I don't want it to accidentally kill my momentum because momentum is your friend. And I just used that brake to steady myself around the corner, and as I was approaching it, I did not know how rough of a hit that would actually be. And so as soon as I hit that backflip obstacle, it just threw that foot forward just enough to tap the brake and kill all of my momentum. And that was the hardest thing for me to stomach. And I made a pretty big mental shift in this point. That what you don't know costs you the most. It's not what you do know. You've applied that, right? And now we're growing and we've got a recommitment to personal growth. But the reason we need to experiment in order to get unstuck in our life and find that next gear is because experience, we can take that knowledge and actually go out and apply it. And we can take the lessons that we learn. That's the only way that we can ultimately grow. And so I know you might be frustrated and you feel like you've been stuck for quite some time. My challenge for you is take what you know, go out there, learn the lesson, don't waste the pain, get something from it, and let's get you unstuck that way. All right? What was G? Grow. What was E? Experiment. A. Oh, you're going to love this one. Oh. This is how probably my best way that I got unstuck and my followers and everything ultimately started to grow in my experience. A stands for assault their senses. Assault their senses. I want to show you a fan reaction video. The same backflip that I did, I think it's in Tampa. 2 separate sides of the stadium. And both of these fans turned the camera and looked at themselves. Look at that, kid. That's awesome. Complete opposite side, same backflip. They're loving it, right? They're obsessed. Now, let me ask you a question. You went to a movie last week, and it's what? Sight and sound, isn't it? That's about it, okay? When you come to a Monster Jam event, this is why I love Monster Jam and really motorsports overall. It's because you get all 5 of your senses absolutely obliterated. What you see the trucks do is like defying logic, right? You can feel the 1,500 horsepower in my motor as I go by. You feel your butt rumble in the seat. You can smell the dirt out there in front of you. You can hear us. It's loud. Bring some ear protection. And you're doing all that while you're eating cotton candy, right? We have got to understand what builds the deepest memories for people. You want to know why, when I was showing you those backflip videos back in the experiment section, it's because the very first video was just what? A quick video of a backflip. It was just sight. It wasn't until I moved on to putting you in my truck, turning the sound on, and then you watched what it looked like. I hit all 3 of your senses. I was trying to convince Jessica to let me pipe in exhaust fumes to get your nose tickled. Well, we did it after lunch, and now I'm going to count that because you guys all have baked potatoes in your stomachs. I was kidding about the exhaust fumes, by the way. But we want to hit as many senses as we can. And so my challenge for all of you is your next post, your next piece of content. Is there something that you can just add one more of the senses to? One more of the senses. If you can get up to 3 of the senses that it affects, you're doing a post about a strawberry. Wonderful. Can you put a music tie into it of strawberry wine on the background or something? And it's such a juicy bite of that strawberry that the juice is running down their chin. And it takes them back to that last strawberry they had. That is what creates the most dynamic memories that you'll ever experience. You've got to assault their senses, all right? It's kind of fun. I like it. So I've got a chapter in my book called Geared for Life, and it's titled this way because this is probably, like I said, one of the biggest mental shifts I made was to make memories and not egos. Don't you think it would be easy for me to go across the country and feel really cool? That this is my job that I just showed you. It feels good, right? Your name's up in lights. You do something cool and 55,000 people are screaming. That's awesome. And if I'm not careful, my ego is what gets inflated. The stuff that changed for me in that moment where I went from essentially having a heart attack to saying something's got to change and seeing the results I've seen in the last 7 years is because I became more committed to making great memories instead of building my own ego. And when we do that, things change, not just mentally, but right there in our circles. Shameless speaker plug, book plug here. There you go. I get one. Doesn't every self-respecting speaker get a book and they got to plug it to you? Hey, who's just trying? Yeah, where else? Oh, come on. Hey, you want a book? Do you want a book? Come on up here. Get this book. I don't want to take it home with me. I was looking for just one of the cheers, and you know what? She came and got it, right? Geared for Life. I had so much fun writing this. There you go. You're so welcome. And it's my 7 personal gears just like this that I've continued to discover and utilize in life. And I would encourage you, if you feel like you're stuck off of today, make sure that you buy a copy of Geared for Life. I think it's free on Audible right now, by the way, all right? Just for a nice little plug there. All right, so what does A stand for? Let's go. All right, lastly, as we wrap up, is R. Now, even though I probably used assaulting their senses the most when it comes to building my brand and going out there and interacting with the public, this is probably my number one life hack. This is probably my number one life hack. I'm from North Carolina, so I get one like country phrase. Can I give it to you? Because it's off of this. You got to risk it for the biscuit. You got to risk it for the biscuit. Anyone ever heard that? It might be like a motorsports term. I'm not 100% sure, but we use it all the time. You got to risk it for the biscuit. I'm going to show you one last video, and it's short and it's quick. This was after the hardest hit of my career. The truck rotated over on top of itself, and I landed on a concrete pavement at Atlanta Motor Speedway, and it rocked my world. So this is me crawling out of the truck, and I was pretty banged up. Like, they had to kind of pull me out. You see my like giraffe legs? I wasn't 100% sure, but do you hear that? Do you hear that rumble, the cheers? There was about 35,000 people there that day, and they were freaking their faces off because they wanted to experience a little bit of carnage. And I was in my feelings at that point because I was hurt there. I was hurt. Those guys, the reason why they grabbed me and they're dragging me out of the truck is because they were trying to get me to the ambulance as quick, because they knew it. You take a cage hit to pavement, there's no suspension on that side of the truck, in case anyone's curious. They were there to grab me and go to the ambulance. I forgot all the pain. I got out of the truck and I heard them cheering for me. You would forget the pain too, wouldn't you? If 35,000, what's your name? If 35,000 people, you got a headache right now, Matt? If he had a headache right now, 35,000 people were like, Matt, that's awesome. You would forget the headache, wouldn't you? You'd forget the headache. I forgot all the pain. I forgot all the pain. Now, I want to challenge you on something, because it's not about the pain and forgetting it. And I already showed you some cool fan reaction videos. But I realized my life hack, probably the biggest life hack I've ever had, is understanding this last final shift. Do you think I put myself through risking life and limb and broken necks and things like, do you think I do that just to win a trophy? Just for the reward? Just to win the freestyle competition? Because I do not. That's not the biscuit for me. The trophy is not. It's a good thing to know where we're going, isn't it? It's a good thing to know the reward. What are we working towards? But culturally, we've got teams that all sit around the table, and the leader only talks about what the team gets if they win. I want to challenge you today, because my biggest life hack is that I probably better and more so than any other driver in the industry of motorsports, I understand what's at stake. I do not push myself. I do not do a daily grind. I don't work for our sponsors as hard as I do and tirelessly. I don't do these in preparing talks for audiences. I didn't go through what it went through to write a book and ultimately go and set Guinness World. I don't do that for the trophy. I do it because I understand what is at stake. what happens if I don't do it? When I got out of that truck, I took my helmet off and I looked over at those fans and they were all going crazy. I didn't see and feel cool about myself. I saw the one kid, the one family that probably had been stuck in life for the last 10 or 15 years. And if I didn't risk everything and have that wow moment and that cool moment, what if they stayed stuck? What if that was the only thing they needed to experience to finally get unstuck and start believing that they can do crazy stuff too in life? That's what drives me. And when I go out there and roll the dice in a Monster Jam truck, I am thinking about that one person. And so this is the mental shift I want to challenge you with. Date the trophy, but marry the stakes. I'm not telling you to forget the trophy and the rewards. I'm saying date the trophy, date the results, but you better understand what happens if you lose and you fail. That's where intrinsic motivation comes from. That's where urgency comes from. You want your team to be more urgent at the office? They don't understand enough about what happens if you don't go and win. That's my greatest life hack I could ever give you. And maybe you're sitting there and you yourself, you're like, man, I feel like I've been stuck for 15 years. And guess why I put this talk together for you? Why do we do all this? It's because I want you to finally get unstuck and start believing that you've got what it takes to be great. You don't have to have all the answers. Life's not a formula. I didn't say this was the gear formula. I said it was the gear framework. I can't give you all the answers, but I can tell you don't need them all. You've got to grow. You've got to experience with what you've grown through and what you've come to understand. You've got to go out there and assault everyone's senses, and you got to risk it for the biscuit. And if you do that, I promise you won't stay stuck. And you'll grab life by the transmission and that shifter knob, and you'll simply click in to your next gear. And that is what you got to do. Grow, experiment, assault their senses, and risk it for the biscuit. Thank you guys so much. I want to see you guys all at Monster Jam soon. Is that a deal?